Good news, guys. The rear end is fucking back. It's in the fucking car. Can you believe it? It's only been, what, a month now? This thing pissed me the fuck off. So basically, long story short, a lot of problems happened. So let's start from the beginning, shall we? So, took the rear end down to Jesse's, dropped it off. About a week later, he calls me, went back down there to pick it up, brought it back, sat it on some jack stands, painted it up real nice, thinking hell yeah. Went to bed that night, waiting for it to dry. So next morning I came back out here to the shop, rear end was dry, went ahead and dropped the old rear end out, went ahead and took all the stuff out of it and proceeded to work on the new housing. So I got the old housing out. Now I'm on to the part where I got to put the C-clip eliminators and everything onto the new rear end housing. So basically I had to start out and get a Sawzall, a grinder, and a tape measure. You take your tape measure and measure from the flange over 1/16 of an inch, mark your spots, take your Sawzall, and you'll chop that end off. So once you get that chopped off, you'll take your grinder and you'll go around it, clean it all up, and make sure it's 1/16 of an inch all the way around. And that's all there is to that. So after I did that, that's when I moved on to getting the differential and everything like that all set up. The new gear set basically set up in the 8.8. And then after that, I proceeded to put the rear end in the car. So now I got the rear end in the car, right? So I proceeded on working on this side on the axle tube and everything. Got this axle in, got the brakes in, got all that stuff set up, bolted up, looking good. Lower control arms are all tight, upper control arms are tight, rear end's mounted good, shocks all mounted up. So I was like, okay, I'm done with this side, I'm gonna head to the other side. So I headed to the passenger side, like I was saying. I get over the passenger side, I start messing around, I stick the axle up in there, and I was like, why is this something so tight? Couldn't figure it out. So I went ahead and pushed it all the way back up on there, and I get almost to the flange and realize the flange is bent. And I was like, motherfucker, so I got a problem with the flange. So after I took a hammer to it gently and worked on it, I got it all straightened out and everything. I had to take 4 bolts and put the brake bracket on it to hold it up nice and straight, and I basically formed it to that, took it off. Then I proceeded to throw the axle back in, and I get back up to it, and I was like, something's just not right. I was having to take the axle and pull it down and back. And I mean, I was using all the strength I had to be able to do this to get the studs to go in the holes on the flange, and it wasn't happening. And at that time, I started looking around and figuring out that what happened is that the axle tube had warped itself out of position. So now I had to take it all back apart and drive back to Bowling Green. So took it back down to Jesse's garage to have him straighten it back out. Not a big deal, just a pain in the ass, just a lot of time wasted. He was great about the situation, took care of it, was really fast about it, had it done within 24 hours. Can't complain about that. So that brings us to now. I get the rear end back. The rear end is back in the car. And everything seemed to work out fine. I found out that I did have a problem with the passenger side steel. The race had come apart from the bearing, which is normal because the way that strange is made for the press on for the C-clip eliminator. It's actually a bearing and a race, just like it is on your spool. So if you ever taken a spool out, you'll know that you got a bearing, you got a race that sits up in there, and that's how it all holds up in. So I got everything lined out on that end, and I had to drill out the bottom left hole a little bit because it was fucked up from where I very lightly and gently, I might add, hit it with the hammer. That was basically it, and now the rear end is in the car, finally, and that's why it's been so long for an update. Yeah, I don't want to fuck with the rear end no more. So as you can tell, the rear end is all back in the car. We had to change the springs out to a 12-inch spring so it would work with the TRZ mounts, because if not, the collar would hit with the 14-inch spring. So if you're doing this, make sure you got a 12-inch spring on it, and that is a 12-inch 110 spring, 110-pound spring. That's what we went with. And as you can tell, I got the plumb bob sitting on it. I was just checking. I know the body panels on a Fox body ain't the greatest thing to go by, but I was just curious, but as you can tell, the housing looks absolutely amazing. Jesse did a really good job, and as you can tell, we got the nice Team Z lowers on it, and we got the UPR uppers, and we also got the anti-roll bar from UPR on the rear end housing. So now I'm going to take it and I'm going to drop this bitch on the ground, and we'll see what it looks like. Tomorrow I'm probably going to start it up, but that'll be a different video. So until next time, guys, it's been a fucking long one. I never want to work with a 8.8 rear end housing again. Peace out.